Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and I'm really thankful that you're here listening today. Each week, I strive to find someone who's going to get your mind rolling in a different direction. And this guest came to me through the way of one of my first guests on the show. If you go all the way back to one of the earliest episodes, we talked to composer Dr. Michael John Trotta, and he sent me an email just a couple months ago saying, "You've got to talk to Elizabeth Moor." Elizabeth Moor is a fantastic middle and high school teacher. She is a beautiful pianist, a great soul, and just listening to her talk, you're going to get ideas. Now, do not play the comparison game, my friends. That is not what we are here to listen for today. I want you listening for ideas and for ways that you can get excited about imagining your programs for the future. We are totally in the craziness of end of year wrap up, and I want this episode to get you excited for all that lies ahead, to help you find the joy that's going to come with creating the repertoire list for the fall or designing your classes or whatever it is you're doing. Come into this conversation ready to just get excited about the opportunities we have as music educators. As always, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Kinnison Choral Company. Charlie and Carrie Kinnison are the best, and they've created this super cool calendar that will help you actually allocate time so you can look at how much time it'll take for pieces. And after you listen to this episode, you're totally going to want to use that so you can find ways to kind of incorporate what you hear Miss Moore talking about today. You can find that link at emilybirch.org/sponsors and click on the KCC logo. If you need me, I am here for you, but without further ado, changing the ruler and putting the students at the center with my teaching friend, Elizabeth Moor. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, we are talking with an exceptional teacher, my dear friend, Elizabeth Moor. Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. You're in your classroom. What have you taught already today?
I taught our second level course, our advanced chorus class, and then I taught 2 periods of chorus class.
Wow. Okay. So you are in high school. You teach high school.
Correct.
And how long have you been at your school? How did you get to be a teacher? Give us your story, Elizabeth Moor.
Okay. So I actually teach at the high school that I went to.
Sweet.
So which is a whole experience, a whole phenomenal and also wild experience to teach where you were a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my undergrad at Mason Gross at Rutgers University. And then I finished a music ed degree, and I thought about getting a job. I had a job offer, and then I thought, I am not ready yet.
Mm.
And there was still a lot. My primary instrument, or my first instrument, is piano.
Mm-hmm.
And there was still a lot more playing that I needed to do before I felt like I could bring something to the classroom in the way that I wanted to. So then I connected with one of the teachers from Westminster Choir College and ended up getting a master's degree at Westminster Choir College. And then ended up teaching at the conservatory there for a couple years, and then ran into, it's so funny how life works, ran into one of my former teachers from high school, and she said there was an opening at my high school. And I had been thinking about, I had been doing some playing in New York and doing some playing in Princeton, and thinking about, and I spent 2 summers at the Aspen Music Festival and sort of was feeling out that lifestyle and what that was going to be. I was in a very, very typical post-grad school space where, then you make the jump to Manhattan, or you do what you do. And I was, going the festival route. So I was thinking about that. And then I taught for a couple years. And then I thought, when I ran into her, I was like, well, I could be one of a lot of piano teachers out there where I was. You know, Princeton is so fortunate to have so many gifted people there to teach. Or I could be a pianist in the city, or I could come back home and be one of a much smaller number of people who can offer what I offer here.
I think you made a stellar decision. I mean, all the decisions would have been great, but I love that those were your three you chose from.
Right. But you know what's also funny is in the intro. So I have been here and it's been great. And I taught in the middle school for a couple of years, and I still run the middle school choir, and I teach AP music theory, and I teach piano lab here. I've been able to build a piano lab program, which has been wonderful. But a couple of years ago, I did a choral reading session at a summer, not NAFME, but NJMEA conference. And I was thinking about this form that we had at the conservatory. And it was just like what you should know by year one, what you should know by year two. And I was like, I really want that, because it was so helpful to know, like, as a pianist, I love like guidelines. I love parameters, my favorite. I love to know what's expected. And if I want to go further, great. But I just like to know what's normal, what people are doing. So I called the conservatory, and the person on the phone said, well, I don't know where that paper is, but I know somebody who would. And she put my old boss on the phone.
Cool.
Who I had not spoken to in years. And my boss was like, she got on the phone. I said, Marianne, it's Beth. And she said, Beth, what? Where have you been? And so we reconnected, and I started working again at the conservatory that next fall. He offered me a job on the spot, and I was like, so it's really I honestly have the best of both worlds. I've been able to come home, but it has really come full circle in that I'm back at Princeton, and I also have the opportunity to bring my students into New York to sing a lot. So it really I've been so fortunate in that I walked away from that lifestyle, but it has found me again.
Yeah,
and so I've been able to I really have the best of both worlds, which has been amazing.
What a testimony of like patience and trying different things. And you really did set out on your own ruler. Like, I could go this way, I could go that way, but I'm going to go this way for me.
That is correct. And I remember when I told my friends at the conservatory that I was leaving to go teach in a public school, they were like, what? Why would you leave this? And when I go back now, I'm like, you drive around Princeton. Why would you ever leave that? It's gorgeous. But I felt like I was being called to something else.
Are you happy that the students have you? Have you seen just how many? Oh my gosh! I mean, all the students.
Yeah, it's also so great when I'm able to bring my students in through one of my friends from Westminster made the introduction, but to be ringers at Carnegie Hall with one of the big organizations that sings there. And it is so lovely to bring my students from my hometown that wouldn't be doing this otherwise, and bring them in there and have them sing with, like our first time, it was very funny and wild. We sang under John Rutter. And I told them, I was like, guys, we hit the lottery.
Yeah, seriously.
We hit the choral lottery. Like you don't, and they came to understand because I explained to them, but it's just been a very unbelievable series of fortunate events that I've been able to have it all in a very real sense. That is just something that is mind-blowing, because I did walk away for what I thought was right, but to have it circle back around has been just
But it's a
wild.
testimony of your persistence. You showed up for the students to be the impact in your community.
Correct.
You put community above self, and now you're reaping that full circle benefit. So for someone listening who is thinking, I miss my performance career, or I'd love my students to have these type of opportunities, let's talk about how you've changed the ruler. How, as a performer coming into a classroom, how have you been able to really make your students the center and the pinnacle piece that keeps you motivated?
Well, it's very interesting, and a huge piece of that is so fresh right now.
Okay.
In that I refound it during the pandemic.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Going on,
so many people have had negative experiences, and that sounds like a rekindling is so positive.
It's wild because I started in the middle school as a general music teacher.
Okay.
Which was a very wild experience coming out of the Westminster Conservatory into a middle school general music position. But that's another conversation for another day, for a very other day, because I wasn't even really sure I knew what 7th and 8th grade non-pianists could do. So it was very
pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And it was unbelievable. But during the pandemic, when performances are taken away, what is the point of what we do? And that has been such a phenomenal unpacking of an experience for me. And I don't think I'm going back.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about how you've unpacked it. Okay. Take us from the beginning.
Right. It has been, and I mean, we're still performing. We have, we did our spring musical this year. We were very lucky. We are doing a performance in 2 weeks, another performance, and we'll do a spring concert.
Are these like masked and socially distanced and stuff like that?
Socially distanced, yes. We're probably going to be doing our concert in the gym. We may even do it outside. I'm not sure. But it has been so nice to really think of the education of the students. It's funny. I wonder after we graduate, I'm a very goal-oriented person. So, you do the things, you get the A. Great. I can absolutely manage that. But then once you graduate, what's the A? What's the goal? What are we doing? So I think for some of us, it becomes like, well, my choir sang at a state conference. Well, I got this many kids into All-State. Well, I got this many kids into region choir. Well, my students sing this piece. My students, we sing at this level, right? Pretty, it seems pretty, we got this trophy at this conference. We got, all right, I get that.
Thing. We worked with this guy, like all of these
exactly.
Little, you can create your own check boxes.
Exactly. Great. So I get that. And I have done those things. Great. So when those things are taken away, then where are we?
Where's your value? Where's your self-confidence when there's no checkbox?
Right. And when there's no performance, what are we really talking about? So then I started thinking about, and I started making lists. I'm a list maker, and during quarantine, what else was there to do but like make lists?
Lists and drink wine. That's pretty much all I did that first month.
Right. Like what else was there to do? So I started making lists and started really rethinking my spiral curriculum.
Oh, okay. I love that visual spiral curriculum.
Right. Because I see them from 7th grade through 12th grade.
Okay.
I'm middle school and high school. So it truly is a spiral curriculum. So I really started thinking about like, what do I want the 7th graders to leave 7th grade with? What do I want the 8th graders? What do I want the, and so I started looking at like elementary Kodai lists. Like, because Kodai is great at spiral curriculum. That's, they're such an amazing resource for that. So, I mean, they're such an amazing resource for 100 million things, but it's so helpful to look at things that you think are too elementary and really bring them into what we're doing now and building those skills to make sure that they have all the skills that they need. Because them being able to sing Only in Sleep by Essenwalds is gorgeous. I listen to it on repeat. But is not necessarily letting me know what their skills are. Or are they just really great at echoing what I just told them to do?
I call it you're not going to come through choir and only be able to sing 6 songs, the alto 2 part. You're going to come through choir and be able to blank these tangible things.
Correct. That's right. And it's funny, right before quarantine, we had our state conference and I saw John Feierabend speak. Unbelievable. And he was talking a lot about, and this is sort of what I went into quarantine with, about making choir general music with choir. And that has really informed a lot of my year, where we've been taking things apart and looking at them and not just, okay, now we're going to work on this piece and now we're going to work on this piece. And I think that's may have been how I was organizing things previous to this. And I think the way a lot of us organize, because we have so many, well, you have to sing here and you have to sing here and you have to do this. But when all of those things are stripped away, it allowed us to create a space where we could explore what we know and what we understand as musicians. So and not just as performers.
That's really important. So making musicians and not just performers. So I'm going to ask a series of questions because I have a couple questions. Do you feel that through this new spiral that your students are more engaged or more talkative? What's the biggest change in your students with this new spiral? Have they noticed?
Yes, I know they've noticed because we've talked about it. I think that they have a stronger skill set. I think they know what they're doing more than before. Okay. Because we were able to talk about so many things that we never had the time to. Even when we were talking about like vocal pedagogy. Really talking to them about alignment. And really breaking it down. And I know we all, 6 points of alignment. Yes, great. And we talk about, and all the things. Yes. But I feel like at this point, I wasn't feeling like I had to run through those concepts.
You could be more individualized.
Correct. And we watched a bunch of videos of like other people talking about it. And maybe if it's not my words, it'll be somebody else's. And then I brought in friends to do master classes to talk about things. So we were really able to sit in these concepts for a little longer than we had to before because we weren't running to the next performance.
And I love that. There's like a slowdown. We felt that too, that there wasn't the rush to the product. You could really enjoy the process.
Correct.
Go ahead. No, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So in that process, do you feel like your pacing will change moving forward when all of the opportunities open back up? Do you see yourself still diving deeper into this process? What do you think will stick around from this?
I definitely do. I think I may, maybe program less pieces so we can have more time with them. Because I think there's also such a pressure to have all of these pieces that you're working on, but maybe we didn't really get the time to really work on them.
Talk about them, experience them. I love what you're saying with using resources like videos, bringing in master classes. I
Yeah.
want those things to stay, the opportunity
Correct.
for students to see so many different perspectives.
Correct.
Do you think this is the spiraling? Do you see yourself now reevaluating it each year? Or for maybe someone who's thinking, okay, maybe I need to tear down my structure of 30 years, or maybe a new teacher, how do I even make a spiral? What are some things you'd give to those folks listening?
I would encourage them not to necessarily reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
We have these are not, my ideas are not new ideas. They are just ones that, if you take out a Kodai book, they lay out the whole thing for you. So just look, one of the other nice things about quarantine is that we had time to look through, to read through things. I have all these books in my living room that have just been staring at me unopened, but now I had time to read them and look through them. And I have all these wonderful books about what are those, teaching music through performance. How many of those are there? There's so many of them. But so these are not original ideas. They just, in my humble opinion, are the best ones.
And you
They
now have
really
the time
are.
to think about it. You don't have that looming, large group evaluation or trophy or big stage
Correct.
to add
And
stress.
then it also makes me think, is that even the goal anymore?
Ooh, talk about that some more. How do you feel the goals have shifted as we go forward?
I think that their education is much more important to me than the next stage we can prove ourselves on.
Do you think you would rewrite your philosophy of education from undergrad at this point?
I'm fairly certain. You go to all state, and my state is so lovely. I love so many of the choral music educators in my state are just so wonderful and so giving. But there are three of you sitting in the room, and then one starts talking about their tour of this, and then one starts talking about, I don't think those things are where my head is anymore.
You've changed your ruler.
I think I'm much like when I told my friends I was walking away from the conservatory. I feel like I may be in another spot like that, where I don't need those kind of things anymore. And I really love the time. I was talking in my advanced course this morning. I love on NPR, What Makes It Great. I don't know if you ever listened to that, Rob Kappelau. I'm obsessed with this show. So, and I love the way he just tears things apart. And then when you bring them back together, you can't help but hear it in such a profound way. And I love that I've been able to do that in my classes, where we've really been able to just like a car engine, take things out and be like, this is how this works, and this is how this, and then when we put it back together, you can really appreciate what it is, but also within an inch of its life, know how you're doing it. Because I think sometimes that when we're called to do something, we just do the best we can, but I like to know everything that I'm called to do to its lowest level, to its smallest molecule. So that if I'm teaching somebody how to support, what are we really doing?
Yeah, what does that even mean?
Yeah, what is that when I say support the sound, what are we talking about? Which is why I talk to my opera singer and my friends all the time, like, listen, we need to sit down, because I need to know more. So, but I feel like we've had the opportunity to talk about these things.
So you really, if we put them down, like if we break this down into step-by-step processes, you paused and you did a lot of reading and research and asked a lot of questions. You weren't afraid to ask other people questions for their expertise.
Absolutely.
And you weren't afraid to create your own ruler to measure your students in your community with what they need musically.
Correct. Which is
that's
such a,
so big.
it's funny. And I, am also a private teacher as well. But I feel like we as choral music educators are so hard on ourselves that we feel like if our students aren't singing things in 19 parts, it's because we are a terrible choral music educator and that we should just hang it up. My friends who are private teachers are so process oriented. And I'll play juries at the conservatory, and if the product is not perfect, they're like, hey, that's where you are right now. It's okay. Can you imagine a choral music educator being like, hey, this, we
This is where we are right now.
Right. We dropped half a step and we started in A, we ended up in A flat. That's where we are now. It's okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a choral music educator saying that? Never. We are so hard on ourselves that if it's not perfect, it's like we take it so to heart. And my private educator friends are also very hard on themselves, but they understand and are more sensitive to the fact that I think we are, that we're all learning. We're all learning. And I don't think we allow ourselves that space in choral music education as much as we could.
It seems like I was just talking to you about Brene Brown's book before we pushed record, The Gifts of Imperfection. And one of the gifts is the glorification of busy and the glorification of exhaustion as a status symbol.
Yes.
We can't just have one job. We have to have multiple jobs, partially because we just stink and love music so much we can't say no.
Correct. Yes.
But there's other reasons why we do that. And to be able to say no, so that you then have the mind space and the time to read the book, to ask the questions, to redesign the curriculum.
Yeah. Well, it's been so nice because performances have been halted. There are no gigs. So I have had lots of time to think about things.
I feel that on such a real level. Right? I've never been in one place this long ever.
Right. I have been home more in this past year than I have ever, I think. So it's been really nice to have this time, going home after school.
Yeah.
What?
I've been practicing piano. I've almost played my I'm almost all the way through Chopin's nocturnes and waltzes because it's my 34th year of life, so I have to play a lot of waltzes because it's my waltzing year, just in case.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's what I've been practicing piano. But I wonder, as we move forward, what's going to keep us making the space, making the time, and not. What do you think? Do you think we'll go back to that super driven? Not that there's anything wrong with the performance-centric mindset, but if you really want the students as the center.
Yeah. I don't know.
What do you think?
I think it's going to have to be a balance. I mean, I think there are going to be performances, and we are, like I said, we are doing performances this year. But I think I'm going to be dialing back maybe the amount of pieces that I expect of them. And then really doing like a deep dive. Like you think about in undergrad, how many pieces you're expected to perform at the end of a semester? 2? You think of the average choir concert, how many pieces we put up there? It's more than 2.
Oh, yes.
It's much more than 2. So if you think about that, are the expectations that we have for ourselves, I'm not saying they're not met, but are they unfair? Are they unrealistic? Maybe not unrealistic, but are they unfair? I'm starting to think a little bit.
I think this is such a good thought. I hope the listeners are letting their creative minds start to spin and thinking, what is the best way to move forward? This has been such a fun conversation, and I'm sincerely looking forward to spending more time together, hopefully at Teacher PD weekend in Savannah.
Yes,
teaser, spoiler. More news on that, but I really enjoyed hearing you share your experience. Thank you for being vulnerable with us and letting us know what you've been doing. I hope it's inspired others. Is there a nugget of something that really matters that you want the listener to walk away from this episode with?
I guess pay attention because your path will reveal itself. And it may not be everybody else's path, and that's okay too.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm all the snaps. Your path will reveal itself, and it might not be anyone else's. Blaze that path, my friend. Elizabeth, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy teaching day to chat with us. This was perfect. We'll talk more soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Blaze your path. Blaze it. Go, run, walk, crawl. I'm so excited to see what path you blaze. I just loved that final comment from our friend Elizabeth Moor. I hope that this conversation has given you some ideas and some things to think about. If you don't already know, I'm officially telling you that we are having a teacher PD weekend retreat thing in Savannah, Georgia in July. All the details are over at patreon.com/musicedmatters. You can always shoot me an email if you want additional questions or details. EmilyBirch.org. We're going to be having conversations like this and so many others over the course of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the beautiful Savannah, Georgia. Of course, you can also join the conversation hybrid, and we'll have all this stuff set up. So we'll have a Zoom of beautiful faces, because we know how important it is to have these conversations, to think out loud, to really analyze the process, because it's different for each of us. But how cool is it that we get to do this as a career? Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, in case no one's told you, you matter. We all know that music matters. And I'll see you next time on the Music Ed Matters podcast.